She showed up in night wears on a blind date, and the Virgin CEO couldn't take his eyes off her. She'd escaped one predator only to sit across from a man worth $300 million. And somehow, he was the one who looked afraid. Have you ever met someone and felt an immediate connection that made no logical sense? Hi viewers, kindly tell us where you're watching from and what time it is. Warm welcome to the family. Enjoy the story. She appeared at his reserved table, wearing see-through nightwear and terror in her eyes. The blind date he never wanted had just turned into something far more dangerous than dinner. Blake Thornton checked his watch for the third time. 8 minutes late. He despised tardiness almost as much as he despised these mandatory social obligations. His assistant had insisted after months of badgering. Even tech geniuses need human connection, she'd said, as if human connection had built his $300 million health tech empire. The private dining room at Atlanta's most exclusive restaurant felt suddenly airless when she walked in. Barefoot, trembling, wearing what appeared to be a nightgown so thin he could see the outline of her body beneath it. His first instinct was to leave. This had to be some kind of mistake or prank. But something in her eyes stopped him. Raw fear, unmistakable and urgent. "I'm not who you think I am," she whispered, sliding into the chair across from him. "But please don't make me leave." Her hand shook as she reached for the water glass. A bruise darkened her wrist. "Someone's after you." "Not a question." She nodded, eyes darting to the door. "I thought this was just a public place I could hide. I didn't know someone was waiting here." Blake studied her. Early 30s, beautiful despite her disheveled appearance, and terrified in a way that seemed bone deep. His security training kicked in automatically. Exit routes, threat assessment, protection protocols. "My car's out back," he said, his voice dropping lower. "I have security. Whoever's chasing you won't follow." Relief and suspicion battled across her face. "Why would you help me? You don't know me. I don't need to." 3 words that contradicted 38 years of calculated isolation. As she weighed his offer, Blake realized something unsettling. He couldn't take his eyes off her. Not just her beauty or the inappropriate transparency of her clothing, but something more fundamental. Her vulnerability awakened something primal in him, a need to protect that he'd never experienced. The restaurant security team appeared at the entrance, scanning faces. Her fingers clutched the tablecloth. "Now or never," Blake said quietly. "My name is Kendra," she whispered, "and I think I might be in more trouble than you can imagine." When she stood, the silk nightgown clung to her curves. Blake removed his suit jacket and placed it around her shoulders, his fingers brushing her skin. The contact sent an unexpected current between them. Have you ever met someone and felt an immediate connection that made no logical sense? Would you trust a stranger if your instincts told you they were safe when everything else screamed danger? As they slipped through the kitchen and out the service entrance, Blake knew 2 things with absolute certainty. She was in serious trouble, and whatever control he'd maintained for 38 years was about to shatter completely. She'd escaped one predator only to sit across from a man worth $300 million. And somehow, he was the one who looked afraid. The Bentley's leather interior enveloped Kendra like another world. Clean, expensive, safe. For now, Blake sat beside her, not touching, giving orders to his driver in a voice that expected obedience. "My estate has security perimeters. No one gets in without clearance," he explained, eyes constantly checking the rearview mirror. "You'll be safe there until we figure this out. Why are you doing this?" The question hung between them. Blake's jaw tightened. "I don't like bullies." The simple answer felt like half-truth. The air between them crackled with something neither acknowledged. As city lights blurred past tinted windows, Kendra's story spilled out in broken pieces. A nursing job in Baltimore, a charming patient who became obsessive, a restraining order that did nothing, moving to Atlanta for a fresh start. "He found me anyway," she said, voice hollow. "Tonight, he was waiting outside my apartment. I ran, didn't even grab shoes. Just ran until I saw your restaurant with people inside." Blake's hands gripped his knees. "The police have a file 3 inches thick. It doesn't matter. He's careful, smart." Her laugh held no humor. He works in tech, actually, knows how to cover his tracks. The connection registered in Blake's eyes. Tech, like him. Rain began falling as they approached iron gates that opened silently at their approach. The estate sprawled before them. Modernist architecture with glass walls overlooking manicured grounds. Fortress-like, isolated. I have 24-hour security, Blake said as they entered a foyer bigger than her entire apartment. Guest suites upstairs. You can stay as long as needed. Kendra pulled his jacket tighter around her shoulders, suddenly aware of her inappropriate clothing. The thin nightgown left little to imagination, and Blake's careful avoidance of looking directly at her body told her he'd noticed. I don't have anything. Clothes, phone charger, toothbrush. I'll have everything delivered tomorrow. For tonight, there are basics in the guest suite. The formal distance in his voice couldn't hide the electricity when their fingers accidentally brushed as he handed her a security key card. Thank you, she whispered, sudden tears threatening. I don't know what would have happened if. Don't. His voice softened fractionally. Get some rest. We'll figure this out tomorrow. As a housekeeper led her upstairs, Kendra's phone vibrated with an incoming message. The screen glowed with words that froze her blood. I see you found a rich one this time. Smile for the camera. Kendra, have you ever trusted your safety to a complete stranger? Would you feel more protected in a billionaire's fortress or hiding somewhere familiar? Drop your thoughts below. The man who built an empire avoiding human touch now stood guard outside her bedroom door, not knowing the threat was already inside his digital walls. Kendra woke disoriented in a room larger than her entire apartment. Sunlight streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking immaculate gardens. For one peaceful moment, she forgot everything until memories crashed back like a physical blow. The stalker, the restaurant, Blake Thornton. A knock at the door revealed a housekeeper with clothing, simple yet expensive items in exactly her size. Mr. Thornton had these delivered. Breakfast is ready whenever you are, miss. Downstairs, she found Blake in a home office surrounded by monitors, phone pressed to his ear. His expression shifted when he saw her. Relief, assessment, and something warmer before his professional mask returned. My security team is investigating your stalker, he said after ending his call. I need details, full name, photos, everything you have. James Wayland, she said, the name bitter on her tone. He was my patient after a minor surgery. Seemed normal at first, until he wasn't. Blake's fingers flew across keyboards as she spoke, building a digital profile of her tormentor. When she described the text from last night, his shoulders tensed. He knows you're here. Not a question. We need to check for surveillance. Security teams swept the property while Blake stayed near Kendra, his protective instinct evident in every movement. For a man who reportedly avoided human contact, he seemed acutely aware of her physical presence, maintaining careful distance while somehow never being far away. That evening, Kendra emerged from the shower to find Blake's t-shirt and sweatpants laid out for her. The clothing smelled faintly of expensive laundry service and something distinctly male. Wearing his clothes felt strangely intimate. She found him in the kitchen, awkwardly attempting to heat prepared meals. I don't cook, he admitted, almost sheepish. Never learned. I can help with that, she offered. Their fingers brushed as she took the containers from him. That same electric current passed between them. How did you build all this without ever? She gestured around the massive house. Without connection, he finished her thought. Focus, discipline, choosing work over distraction. And women were just distractions? His eyes met hers directly. Until now, the simple admission hung between them as they ate in surprisingly comfortable silence. Later, as she headed toward her room, Blake followed at a respectful distance. I'll be right outside if you need anything, he said, positioning himself in a chair in the hallway. You don't have to stand guard. I do, actually. His expression brooked no argument. Have you ever met someone who changed their entire routine to protect you? What would it take for someone who's always lived alone to suddenly risk everything for a stranger? Comment your thoughts below. When the security alert pinged at 3 a.m., Someone had accessed his company servers using credentials that hadn't been used in years. The same night she arrived, the same night everything changed. His tech empire faced its first serious breach the same night he brought her home. A coincidence only a fool would believe. Dawn brought chaos to Blake's ordered world. Security teams crowded his home office, tracking digital footprints while corporate lawyers managed the growing media interest in why Blake Thornton, famous recluse and tech genius, had suddenly brought a woman to his closely guarded estate. Kendra watched from the doorway, the weight of guilt pressing against her chest. "This is because of me, isn't it?" Blake's eyes found hers across the room. For a heartbeat, his professional mask slipped, revealing something raw and conflicted before he controlled it. "My company has enemies. This could be unrelated." They both knew he didn't believe that. His security chief approached with a tablet. "Sir, the breach came through legacy credentials. Someone with intimate knowledge of our systems." "Impossible," Blake said. "Those access codes were deactivated years ago." "Not all of them." Kendra's phone buzzed with a new message. Her face paled as she read it. "He says he's watching us. Right now." Her voice shook. "How is that possible with all your security?" Blake crossed the room in 4 quick strides, his proximity sending warmth through her despite the circumstances. He took the phone carefully, their fingers brushing. "We'll trace this," he promised. "Meanwhile, stay where I can see you." Throughout the day, they remained in close orbit, Blake maintaining professional distance while somehow always aware of her location. When calls forced him into private conversations, his eyes still tracked her movements across the room. By afternoon, his team had compiled surveillance footage from the restaurant. Blake's expression darkened as they reviewed the video. "Stop there," he commanded suddenly. "Enlarge that figure." The security team zoomed in on a man entering the private dining area minutes after Kendra arrived. Though partially obscured, his features were unmistakable to her. "That's him," she whispered. "That's James." But Blake had gone completely still, his face draining of color. "That's impossible." "You know him?" Kendra asked, alarm rising. Blake turned to her, his controlled expression cracking. "That man looks exactly like my former business partner, the one who tried to steal my company 5 years ago." The revelation hung between them like a physical thing, too significant to be coincidence. The partner who had access to all those legacy credentials, his security chief, added quietly. Blake's eyes never left Kendra's. "I need you to tell me everything," he said, his voice hollow. "Starting with why your stalker looks exactly like my former business partner. Have you ever discovered a connection that seemed too strange to be random chance? What would you do if you realized you were caught in something much bigger than you initially thought? Let me know in the comments." The man hunting her and the partner who betrayed him shared more than a resemblance. They shared a vendetta that had finally found its perfect weapon, her. Lightning flashed outside the floor-to-ceiling windows as rain lashed against glass. Inside, digital displays connected impossible dots between 2 separate lives. Victor Reeves, Blake said, bringing up company photos of his former partner. "Co-founded Thornton Health Technologies with me 12 years ago. Brilliant developer, charismatic frontman." "That's James," Kendra whispered, staring at the corporate headshot. "Same face, different name." Blake continued, his voice tight. "5 years ago, I discovered Victor had been selling patient data from our medical platforms. When I confronted him, he claimed it was for research. The board sided with me. He was removed. And he blamed you," Kendra finished. "So he found me, a nurse with access to medical systems, to what? Get revenge. To find a way back in," Blake's security chief interjected. "Classic social engineering. Date someone with peripheral access, escalate privileges." "We never dated," Kendra corrected sharply. "He was my patient. He became obsessed." Thunder crashed outside, briefly cutting power before backup generators hummed to life. In that moment of darkness, Blake moved closer to Kendra, his hand finding hers instinctively. When light returned, he didn't move away. What if it's more calculated than obsession? Blake's thumb traced unconscious circles on her wrist. What if he chose you specifically? The question hung between them as security teams connected more dots. James Whalen's appearance in Baltimore coinciding exactly with Kendra's new job at a hospital using Thornton Technologies. Her transfer to Atlanta 3 months ago to another Thornton-affiliated medical center. He's been planning this, Blake said quietly. Using you to get to me. The weight of manipulation crashed over Kendra. I was just a pawn. No. Blake's voice hardened as his fingers tightened around hers. You were a person he hurt. A life he disrupted. That makes this personal. Lightning illuminated his face, angles and intensity, and something that looked remarkably like care. For a man famous for his emotional distance, Blake Thornton was showing cracks in his carefully constructed walls. We'll end this, he promised, close enough now that she could feel his breath against her hair. Together, their eyes locked, mutual understanding flowing between them. Both violated, both targeted, both unwilling to let Victor, James, whoever he was win. When Blake's hand brushed her cheek, the contact felt inevitable. Electric. Necessary. We can't, she whispered, even as she leaned into his touch. I know, he answered, his voice dropping to a register that made her skin warm despite the crisis surrounding them. But I've spent my life avoiding what I want. I'm not sure I remember how. Have you ever found connection with someone under impossible circumstances? When has crisis brought you closer to someone than months of normal interaction could? Share your experience in the comments. The billion-dollar empire he built on control was crumbling around them. And for the first time in his life, he didn't care. Morning headlines screamed accusations across every financial network. Thornton Technologies stock plummets amid security concerns. Digital security experts questioned the vulnerability. Market analysts predicted catastrophic losses. A company built on patient data security now faced its greatest threat. Blake barely noticed. His eyes followed Kendra as she moved through his home, her presence transforming sterile spaces into something alive. Something real. Your board wants an emergency meeting, his assistant reported over speakerphone. They're questioning your judgment, bringing an unknown woman into your home when she's clearly connected to. Postpone it, Blake interrupted, his focus unwavering as Kendra entered the room. Sir, with respect, this situation is. Handle it. He ended the call, silencing protests with the same authority that had built an empire. Kendra's eyes met his across the room. You're sacrificing everything to protect me. Not everything, he corrected. Just the things that don't matter. That evening, as media drones hovered beyond property boundaries and security teams monitored every digital intrusion attempt, they retreated to the observatory wing. Glass dome overhead revealing stars despite the city glow, they sat side by side on a leather couch meant for stargazing. Tell me something real, she whispered. Something that isn't about all this. Blake hesitated and used to personal revelations. I built this room first, before the office, before anything else. As a child, astronomy made me feel less alone. Her fingers found his in the dim light. And now I don't feel alone at all. The simplicity of his admission hung between them. When Kendra leaned forward, closing the distance, Blake's breath caught. Years of carefully maintained control evaporated at the first touch of her lips against his. Tentative, questioning, then certain. His hands moved with surprising confidence for someone who'd never allowed himself this vulnerability, framing her face as though memorizing contours through touch. I've never, he started, rare uncertainty in his voice. I know, she breathed against his neck. Show me what you've imagined all these years. Their bodies found each other with a certainty that defied their brief acquaintance. His inexperienced hands explored with reverent curiosity, each discovery drawing soft sounds from her that only increased his confidence. Her body arched into his touch, teaching without words what theory could never explain. Is this okay? He whispered against her skin, seeking permission with each new territory claimed. Yes, she answered, guiding his hands where she wanted them. Everything about this is okay. Outside, technology monitored their safety. Inside, under the stars, two guarded souls surrendered walls neither had planned to lower. Dawn found them tangled together, vulnerability still warm between them, until his security chief's urgent knock shattered their brief peace. "Sir," the voice carried through the door. "They've released the video, but it's been altered to make it look like a kidnapping. The police are on their way. What desire have you denied yourself out of fear or duty? What would happen if you finally surrendered to it? Tell me your thoughts in the comments." The world believed he'd kidnapped her, but the truth was far more dangerous. For the first time in his life, he'd let someone in. Police cruisers lined the circular driveway, lights flashing against limestone and glass. Inside, officers separated them for questioning. Standard procedure that felt like physical pain after their night together. "Let me see the video," Blake demanded in the main office, his lawyer already present. The detective's expression remained professional as she played the doctored footage on a tablet. Restaurant security cameras showed Kendra entering disheveled, Blake grabbing her arm, forcing her toward the exit. Audio, clearly fabricated, included her pleading to be released. "That's not what happened," Blake stated flatly. "She came to me for help." Convenient explanation, Mr. Thornton. The detective's skepticism was evident. Woman in night clothes, OB. Across the mansion, in a separate sitting room, Kendra faced her own interrogator. "Your stalking claims against James Whalen show no evidence he was ever in Atlanta," the officer explained. "However, we have multiple witnesses placing you at your apartment just hours before the restaurant incident. Calm, normal, not fleeing anyone." "That's impossible," Kendra insisted. "I was running barefoot from my building." "Ma'am, we have doorman testimony and lobby footage showing you leaving normally at 5 p.m. Not in a nightgown, not in distress." The implication hung heavy. Her story didn't match evidence. Hours later, when finally allowed in the same room, their eyes met with forbidden communication. Something had shifted between them, connection deepening under pressure. The detective noticed their glance, making notes. "Mr. Thornton's security team has provided alibi evidence," she finally announced. "And hospital records confirm MS. Davy did file multiple harassment reports in Baltimore. We're releasing you both while investigating further." As officers departed, Blake moved immediately to Kendra's side, professional distance abandoned. "They don't believe me," she whispered. "The evidence has been manipulated," Blake finished. Victor was always brilliant with digital alterations. His security chief appeared with a tablet. "Sir, we found something concerning in the system review." The screen displayed surveillance images from 5 years earlier. Kendra's stalker entering Thornton Technologies headquarters beside Blake's former partner. "That's impossible," she breathed. "I never met him until Baltimore." "You didn't," Blake confirmed, pieces clicking into terrible place. "Victor did. His brother James, your stalker, visited our offices years ago." "Brothers?" Kendra's voice cracked. "Twins, possibly." Blake's jaw tightened. The detective slid the final evidence across the table. James Whalen had been observed entering Blake's company building years before she'd ever met him. "He didn't find me by accident," she whispered, horror dawning. "He sent me to Blake deliberately. This whole thing, my job transfers, the stalking, it was all to get to you." Have you ever been misunderstood so completely that the truth seemed impossible to explain? How do you fight a narrative that everyone believes except you? Share your thoughts below. The night she stumbled into his restaurant wasn't chance. It was the culmination of a planned 5 years in the making. Blake's home office transformed into investigation headquarters. Walls displayed timelines spanning years. Connections between Kendra's hospitals, Victor's dismissal, and James's strategic appearances. Not coincidence. Calculation. The brothers worked together, Blake explained to the private security team. Victor wanted revenge for losing his company position. James provided access through medical systems. "Using me," Kendra added, arms wrapped around herself. "They study my background, knew I'd be perfect, compassionate nurse with no family connections, history of helping vulnerable patients. They needed someone with hospital credentials who could eventually be maneuvered toward me," Blake continued. "Someone without strong support systems who could be isolated through fear." Detective Rivera, now convinced of their innocence, pointed to employment records. Each hospital transfer put you closer to Thornton's operations. Your final position gave you access to patient data that would be valuable to competitors. But I never accessed anything unauthorized, Kendra protested. You wouldn't need to, Blake explained gently. Just having your login credentials on company networks would give them potential backdoor access. The temporary reprieve from police custody had come with conditions. Neither could leave the estate, and officers remained stationed at entrances. Media helicopters circled overhead, cameras trained on windows for glimpses of the kidnapping victim and her billionaire captor. That evening, when security teams finally departed to follow new leads, Blake found Kendra in the kitchen, staring unseeing at the garden beyond windows. 5 years, she whispered as he approached. They watched me, planned this, manipulated my entire life for 5 years. His hands settled carefully on her shoulders, turning her to face him. The controlled businessman was gone, replaced by raw protective fury. This ends now, he promised. They wanted to use you to destroy me. Instead, they brought me the one person who makes me stronger. The admission hung between them, profound from a man known for emotional isolation. When she stepped into his arms, the embrace felt like coming home despite the crisis surrounding them. His body curved around hers, protective yet seeking comfort in equal measure. When I left Baltimore, she confessed against his chest. I thought I was escaping. Instead, I was following their script perfectly. His fingers traced her jawline, lifting her face to his. Then let's rewrite the ending. Their lips met with desperate affirmation. Connection amid chaos, truth among lies. A notification chimed on his secure tablet, breaking their moment. Blake's expression darkened as he read the alert. Someone activated the emergency evacuation protocol at company headquarters, he said, voice tight with certainty. We need to go there now. Whatever they've planned, it's happening tonight. What would you do if you discovered your life had been manipulated by someone else's vendetta? How would you reclaim your story? Let me know in the comments. They drove toward a trap they couldn't avoid, because sometimes the only way to escape a predator is to become the prey. Night fell as Blake's armored SUV cut through Atlanta traffic toward downtown. Police escort lights flashed ahead while security teams maintained constant communication through earpieces. Inside, a different kind of tension built between them. You don't have to come, Blake said, eyes fixed on the approaching glass tower bearing his name. Stay at the estate where it's safe. Kendra's hand found his in the darkness of the back seat. I'm done hiding, done being their pawn. The city lights reflected in his eyes as he turned to her. If something happens, then it happens to both of us, she finished. I didn't ask for any of this. Neither did you, but we're facing it together. The admission changed something between them, partnership crystallizing amid crisis. His fingers tightened around hers. I never let anyone close, Blake confessed, voice low beneath the sound of police radios. Built walls, systems, protocols, controlled everything. And now I can't imagine facing this without you. The vulnerability in his voice made her heart ache. That terrifies me more than Victor ever could. The SUV slowed as they approached the security perimeter established around Thornton Technologies headquarters. 40 stories of glass and steel, now partially evacuated due to bomb threats. Emergency lights painted the night in red and blue pulses. 5 minutes until we reach the command center, the driver announced. 5 minutes, that might be all they had left. Kendra moved across the space between them, need suddenly urgent. Her lips found his with certainty that surprised them both. Not goodbye, affirmation. We should wait, Blake whispered against her mouth, even as his hands drew her closer. We've both waited our whole lives, she answered, fingers already working at his shirt buttons. I'm done waiting. They came together with desperate intensity, his hands mapping her body like territory he might never explore again. Her fingers tangled in his hair, anchoring him to the present when fear threatened to pull them into uncertain futures. I never believed in this, he breathed against her neck as she moved above him. Never thought connection could be more powerful than control. Her body answered what words couldn't express. The revelation that vulnerability could become strength, that surrender could be victory. As the SUV approached the final checkpoint, reality intruded. Clothes straightened, composure recovered. But something fundamental had changed. Whatever came next, they would face it transformed. Blake's phone lit up with an incoming video call from her phone, which was supposed to be in her pocket. On screen, a face identical to the corporate photos they'd studied smiled coldly. Behind him stood Blake's private office, 40 floors above where they currently sat. "Welcome home," Victor Reeves said, camera panning to reveal explosive devices positioned around the room. "I've been waiting years for this reunion. When have you found unexpected courage in someone you thought you knew? What would you confess if you weren't sure you'd get another chance? Drop a comment below." The man who stole her peace now stood in his sanctum, two obsessions converging in one night of reckoning. Tactical teams surrounded Blake and Kendra as they entered the lobby, bulletproof vests strapped over their clothing. Security monitors displayed evacuation progress. Lower 30 floors cleared, top executives and essential personnel moved to safe locations. Only the executive floor remained locked down, where Victor waited. "I'll go alone," Blake insisted to the SWAT commander. "He wants me. Using others puts them at risk." "Not happening," the commander countered. "And you're not going at all. We have negotiators." "He won't negotiate," Kendra interrupted. "I know how he thinks. This isn't about money or demands. It's about making Blake suffer." Her certainty silenced the tactical team. Blake's hand found hers, fingers interlacing with practiced familiarity that belied their brief connection. "We go together," she said firmly. "He wanted to use me against you. Let's use that." The elevator ride to the 40th floor stretched in tense silence. Armed officers flanked them while bomb technicians communicated through headsets, assessing explosive placements visible through security cameras. "His devices are sophisticated," the tech reported. "Motion sensors, remote triggers. We need time to analyze before attempting disarmament." Blake's expression remained controlled, only the tightness around his eyes betraying tension. "Time is what he wants. Every minute drags out my public humiliation and company devaluation." The elevator doors opened to a minimalist reception area. Beyond glass walls, Victor Reeves stood in Blake's corner office, watching their approach with a satisfied smile of a chess player seeing his endgame unfold. "Isn't this poetic?" Victor called as they entered, keeping calculated distance. "The three of us, finally together." "Where's your brother?" Kendra demanded, voice steadier than she felt. Victor's smile widened. "James served his purpose, getting close to you, guiding you toward Blake. He's been well compensated for his acting skills." Acting, the revelation struck like physical pain. There was never any stalker. "Oh, the fear was real enough," Victor countered. "Just directed. You were selected, Ms. Davy. Your psychological profile, employment history, even your tendency toward compassion for difficult patients. Perfect for our needs." Blake's controlled exterior cracked slightly. "You spent 5 years on this? Terrorizing an innocent woman just to get to me? 5 years is nothing compared to what you took from me." Victor's pleasant mask slipped, revealing raw hatred. "My company, my reputation, my future. You were selling patient data," Blake responded evenly. "People trusted us with their medical information. You betrayed them. I advanced research, created value, while you hid behind ethics and regulations." Victor's finger hovered over a remote trigger. "And now your precious reputation will burn alongside this building." Kendra stepped forward despite Blake's protective hand reaching for her. "You didn't just use me to get to him. You needed me specifically." "What?" Victor's smile returned, colder now. "Smart girl. Ask your new lover about his sister. About what really happened 5 years ago when I was forced out." Blake went completely still. "Leave Rebecca out of this." "Rebecca?" Kendra turned, seeing new pain etched across Blake's features. "She's the reason he built all this," Victor explained with cruel satisfaction. "His dying sister needed experimental treatment. Treatment my research could have provided. if Blake hadn't shut me down for ethical violations. You were experimenting on patients without consent. Blake's voice hardened, including my sister. The explosion from lower floors shook the building before Victor could respond. Windows rattled as emergency alarms blared to life. That's just the beginning, Victor announced calmly. Every 5 minutes, another charge detonates. By dawn, Thornton Technologies will be rubble, along with anyone still inside. Blake's eyes met Kendra's, silent communication passing between them. Then he turned toward the emergency stairwell, shoving her toward the door. Go, he commanded, eyes never leaving his enemy. I'll find you. But as the door closed between them, she knew with sickening certainty it was a promise he might not be able to keep. As flames consumed the empire he built, she realized the most valuable thing at risk wasn't in the building. It was still inside, facing a madman alone. Have you ever turned back toward danger instead of away from it? What connection made you brave when logic demanded retreat? Share your experience below. Emergency lights bathed the stairwell in pulsing red as smoke curled up from lower floors. Each step down taking her further from him. Each alarm a reminder that somewhere above, 2 men were concluding a story that began long before she entered it. Kendra pushed past evacuating employees, heart pounding against her ribs. The logical part of her brain screamed to continue downward towards safety. But logic hadn't guided any part of this journey. Ma'am, you need to evacuate, a security officer called, directing people toward ground-level exits. She hesitated, torn between self-preservation and the magnetic pull drawing her back upward. In 30 years of facing danger, she'd perfected the art of escape. Running was survival. Running was smart. But she wasn't running this time. There's someone still up there, she told the officer, already turning back toward the upper floors. SWAT teams will handle it. You need to. His words faded as she pushed past, taking stairs 2 at a time back toward the executive level. Smoke thickened with each floor, alarms blaring in rhythmic urgency. Meanwhile, 40 floors above, Blake faced his former partner across the glass-walled office. 2 brilliant minds separated by moral chasms. You could have been part of something revolutionary, Victor said, remote detonator still in hand. Instead, you chose to become just another tech billionaire playing by the rules. Those rules protect people, Blake countered, eyes tracking Victor's movements. People like my sister, like Kendra. Victor laughed without humor. Your sister would still be alive if you'd supported my research instead of shutting it down. Some rules deserve breaking. The accusation struck like physical pain. 5 years of guilt compressed into 1 moment of truth. Rebecca's face flashed in Blake's memory. Brilliant, determined, so much like him. Wasting away while conventional treatments failed. She wouldn't have wanted life at any cost, Blake said quietly. Especially not at the cost of others. Another explosion rocked the building, closer this time. Glass partitions cracked in spiderweb patterns. Noble sentiments, Victor mocked, backing toward the emergency elevator. Let's see how they comfort you in your final moments. Blake lunged forward just as the elevator doors began closing, only to freeze as Victor revealed a secondary detonator. One more step and the charges on this floor detonate immediately. Through smoke-hazed air, Kendra fought her way back to the executive floor. Each step an act of defiance against lifelong patterns. Always running, always hiding, always surviving alone. Not anymore. The door to the 40th floor opened on a scene from nightmares. Cracked glass walls, smoke curling through broken partitions, and Blake standing motionless as elevator doors closed on Victor's smiling face. Blake, she called, voice cutting through alarm wails. He turned, disbelief and something like wonder crossing his features. You came back. Always, she answered, crossing the space between them as another explosion shook the foundation beneath their feet. The building was coming apart around them. And for the first time in her life, Kendra had stopped running away from danger and instead run straight toward it. Toward him. What would make you run toward destruction instead of away? Who would you risk everything to save? Share your answer in the comments. Fire licked at Design Awards and achievement plaques as she burst back into his office. Proof of his past matching less than the future suddenly possible if they survive the next 5 minutes. "We need to go," Blake urged, grabbing her hand. "The whole building's rigged." Victor's controlling detonations from outside. The floor shifted beneath them as structural supports weakened. Through broken windows, emergency lights painted the night sky in urgent colors. Blake pulled her toward the emergency stairs just as a section of ceiling collapsed behind them. "The emergency teams are evacuating up to the 35th floor," he explained, guiding her through smoke-filled corridors. "We need to reach them before the stairs are compromised." Another explosion rocked the building, throwing them against a wall. Blake's body curved protectively around hers as debris rained down from overhead panels. "You should have kept going," he said, his voice rough against her ear. "Why did you come back?" Kendra pulled back enough to meet his eyes. "Because in 30 years of running from danger, this was the first time I had someone worth fighting for." The raw honesty hung between them, more intimate than their physical connection hours earlier. Blake's expression shifted from disbelief to something that looked remarkably like hope. "There's something you should know," he said, fingers brushing her cheek with impossible tenderness amid chaos. "About Rebecca. About why Victor hates me enough to destroy everything." "Tell me later," she insisted, "when we're not about to die in a collapsing building." A support beam crashed down yards away, blocking their path to the stairwell. Flames crawled along the ceiling, eating through expensive materials with democratic hunger. "There's another way," Blake decided, pulling her toward an interior office. "The executive elevator has independent power and fire suppression." The small space offered momentary shelter from advancing flames. Blake worked frantically at the elevator security panel while Kendra watched smoke curl under the door. "It's not responding," he muttered, frustration breaking through his controlled exterior. "Then we find another way," she insisted, refusing to surrender to panic. When he looked up, his expression had changed. No longer the calculating businessman, but a man facing mortality with sudden clarity. "If we don't make it, we will," she interrupted. "If we don't," he continued, pulling her close, "I need you to know that meeting you, even like this, even because of Victor's manipulation, was worth everything." The confession broke something open between them. Her hands framed his face, mouth finding his with desperate certainty as the world collapsed around them. "Not goodbye," affirmation. He pulled her behind a fallen beam as more debris rained down, bodies pressed together in the narrow space. "You came back," he breathed against her hair, disbelief coloring his voice. "Always," she promised, her hands holding him like an anchor in the storm. The kiss that followed contained everything words couldn't express: apology, gratitude, promise. His hands moved with newfound urgency, memorizing the contours of her body through touch. Her fingers tangled in his hair, refusing to let go even as smoke thickened around them. The elevator doors suddenly opened with a mechanical chime that seemed absurdly normal amid destruction. "Emergency override accepted," announced an automated voice. Blake pulled her into the small space, doors closing on advancing flames. The descent began smoothly despite the building's deteriorating condition. "Ow!" Kendra asked, breathless. "Remote access from security teams outside," Blake explained, never releasing her hand. "They've been tracking our location through building sensors." When the elevator reached the lobby level, they emerged into organized chaos. Emergency responders, police teams, and news crews capturing their ash-covered figures stepping into flashing lights. His face bloodied, her hand firmly in his, both alive but forever changed. And somewhere in the crowd, watching from shadows, Victor smiled. Because the final phase was just beginning. Have you ever found yourself running towards something you feared instead of away from it? When has protecting someone else given you courage you never knew you had? Tell me in the comments. The media called it a miracle escape, but they knew it was merely the intermission in a performance designed to destroy them both. Hospital monitors beeped in steady rhythm, tracking Blake's vital signs while he slept. Smoke inhalation and a laceration requiring 15 stitches had forced doctors to insist on overnight observation. Outside the private suite, security teams maintained vigilant watch while reporters clustered in the lobby below. Kendra sat beside his bed, her own minor injuries treated and bandaged. The television, mounted on the wall, played continuous coverage of Thornton Technologies' partial collapse, spectacular footage of a glass tower burning against the night sky. Authorities are investigating what appears to be a coordinated attack, the reporter announced over dramatic visuals. Sources close to the investigation suggest a connection to tech billionaire Blake Thornton's alleged kidnapping of nurse Kendra Davy 2 days ago. The story they constructed played across screens nationwide. Innocent nurse, obsessive billionaire, dramatic rescue. A narrative engineered to destroy Blake's reputation while painting Victor as whistleblower rather than terrorist. Blake stirred, eyes opening to find Kendra watching him. His hand reached for hers with newfound familiarity. "How bad?" he asked, voice rough from smoke exposure. "The building or the media coverage?" She attempted humor despite exhaustion. "Both. 8 floors destroyed. No casualties thanks to your evacuation protocols. But your reputation." She gestured toward the television where analysts debated his mental stability. Blake's expression hardened. "Victor's planned this perfectly. The company will recover from physical damage. Reputation is harder to rebuild." Detective Rivera entered, nodding acknowledgement to them both. "We've issued an arrest warrant for Victor Reeves. His brother James has been detained in Baltimore. The evidence you provided proves coordination between them. But the public narrative remains that I kidnapped Kendra," Blake observed. "We're working to correct that," the detective assured them. Meanwhile, something concerning came up during the investigation. She placed a folder on the bed tray. Inside, photographs showed women resembling Kendra. All nurses, all working at hospitals using Thornton Technologies. All targeted by James Wayland over the past 5 years, Rivera explained. All share similar physical characteristics. "They look like me," Kendra observed, studying the images. "Not exactly," Blake said quietly. "They look like someone else." The detective closed the door for privacy. "We found something in the company's servers, files dating back 5 years. Every woman your stalker targeted. They all resembled someone from Mr. Thornton's past. Someone neither of you has mentioned." Blake's fingers tightened around Kendra's. "My sister Rebecca." The truth hung heavy between them. The final piece of a puzzle constructed from vengeful obsession. "Victor didn't just want to destroy your company," Kendra realized, pieces clicking into place. "He wanted to use me to remind you of her, to make you suffer." Blake's expression confirmed her theory. The detective nodded sympathetically before leaving them to process this new dimension of cruelty. When they were alone, Kendra moved to sit on the edge of his bed, fingers intertwined with his. "Tell me about her," she said softly. His eyes met hers, vulnerability replacing the guarded control he showed the world. "Tomorrow," he promised. "First, we need to reclaim our story. What pain have you buried that might actually heal you if brought to light? How does sharing your deepest wounds change your capacity for connection? I'd love to hear your thoughts below." The truth that would save them was buried in his past, in the one relationship he'd spent decades trying to forget. Morning sun filtered through hospital blinds as Blake signed discharge papers. Security teams coordinated their movement through back exits, avoiding media encampments. Kendra watched him, efficient, controlled, determined. Yet something had shifted, vulnerability now visible beneath his armor. The private cemetery occupied a quiet corner of Atlanta's historic district. Simple headstone amid carefully tended roses. Rebecca Thornton, beloved sister, her dates marking a life cut tragically short. Blake stood silent before the grave, Kendra beside him. His hand found hers with the natural ease of much older intimacy. "She was brilliant," he finally said. "Diagnosed at 19, refused to let it define her. Finished medical school while fighting cancer that should have killed her years earlier." "She sounds remarkable," Kendra said softly. "She was the reason I started the company." building medical technology that could help patients like her. His voice remained steady through practice control. Victor joined later. Brilliant programmer, charismatic frontman. Rebecca trusted him. The unspoken accusation hung heavy. Trusted him and was betrayed. They were testing experimental treatments. Blake continued. I discovered Victor was manipulating data, rushing protocols. When I confronted him, Rebecca defended him. Believed his methods justified the results. Kendra's heart ached for the impossible position. Torn between protecting his sister and upholding ethical standards that protected others. The board sided with me. Victor was removed. Rebecca, his voice finally broke. She died 3 months later. The approved treatments failed. Victor always believed his methods could have saved her, and blamed you for choosing strangers over your own sister. Kendra finished, understanding dawning. I was driving the night she died, Blake admitted, the confession seeming physically painful. Taking her to a specialist appointment. She was angry, still defending Victor. We argued. I was distracted. The guilt radiating from him needed no further explanation. So Victor found women who resembled her, Kendra said. Nurses like she had been. Terrorized them as proxy revenge against you. Until he found you. Blake turned to face her fully. The perfect weapon. Not just similar appearance, but someone whose compassion and strength reminded me of her. Someone I could care about. Someone whose sufferings would magnify my guilt. The calculated cruelty stole her breath. That evening, police coordinated their trap, using Blake's public hospital discharge to draw Victor into position. Kendra's phone controlled remotely to send messages suggesting they had evidence of his brother's confession. In the safety of Blake's secondary residence, they waited for confirmation of Victor's capture. The quiet house felt like sanctuary after days of chaos. If this works, Blake said as darkness fell, it still doesn't erase what happened. The company, my reputation, can be rebuilt, she interrupted. What matters is stopping him from hurting anyone else. When he reached for her, the connection felt different, tender rather than desperate, healing rather than escaping. They came together with gentle reverence, his tears mingling with kisses as decades of controlled grief finally broke free. I couldn't save her, he whispered against her skin. But we can save each other, she promised, guiding him into the shelter of her body, creating something new from broken pieces. Later, as she drifted toward sleep in his arms, her phone lit up with a message that changed everything. Did he tell you he was driving the night his sister died? Ask him who really deserves punishment. What pain have you buried that might actually heal you if brought to light? How does sharing your deepest wounds change your capacity for connection? Share your experience below. The final battle wasn't fought with weapons or wealth, but with the most dangerous power of all, forgiveness. Dawn painted abandoned warehouse windows in golden light as 3 figures circled each other across concrete floors. Tactical teams maintained position outside, awaiting signal. The trap had worked, Victor believing he'd lured them into final confrontation. Did she tell you my conditions? Victor asked Blake, gesturing toward Kendra. Full public confession. Admit you sacrificed Rebecca for your precious ethics. I've read your demands, Blake answered calmly. Now read mine. Surrender peacefully, and I'll ensure your brother receives mental health treatment instead of prison. Victor's laugh echoed against metal walls. Still playing the honorable businessman? That mask must be exhausting. No more masks, Blake countered. No more running from truth. Kendra moved slightly forward, positioning herself between them. You chose me because I resemble Rebecca. Used your brother to terrorize me. Push me toward Blake. James was always the performer in the family, Victor acknowledged with disturbing pride. Convincing as the obsessed patient, wasn't he? The fear you felt was quite real. And now, she challenged, what does terrorizing me accomplish? Rebecca is gone. Justice, Victor spat. He let her die, chose strangers over his own blood. That's not what happened, Blake said quietly. And you know it. The standoff stretched in tense silence. Outside, tactical teams awaited command to enter. Rebecca chose experimental treatment. Blake continued, voice steady. Against medical advice, against my pleading, you encouraged her desperation. I offered hope when conventional medicine failed her, Victor countered. You offered false promises, manipulated data, risked other patients' lives. Blake moved closer, hands open at his sides. I couldn't let that continue, even for her. So you chose your precious ethics over your sister's life. No, Blake's voice hardened. I chose to honor who she really was. Rebecca was a doctor. She believed in doing no harm. In her clearest moments, she knew your methods crossed lines she wouldn't want crossed, even to save her. The truth hung between them, painful and raw. She defended you, Victor insisted, desperation edging his voice. Because she was afraid, Blake responded gently. Not because she believed you were right. Something shifted in Victor's expression, certainty cracking under the weight of reality he'd refused to face for 5 years. The accident wasn't your fault, Victor said finally, the accusation that had fueled his revenge suddenly absent. I was distracted, Blake admitted, arguing about you, about treatment options. She seized while you were driving, Victor corrected flatly. I saw the medical reports. Nothing you could have done would have changed the outcome. The revelation struck Blake physically, years of guilt confronted by truth he'd never allowed himself to accept. Kendra watched understanding pass between the men, enemies united by love for the same lost woman. In that moment, tactical teams entered, surrounding Victor without resistance. Rebecca wouldn't want this, Blake said as officers applied handcuffs. She wouldn't want either of us destroyed by her memory. Victor's eyes met his former partner's one final time. Perhaps that's the one thing we still agree on. Weeks later, as media coverage shifted from scandal to corporate resurrection, Blake and Kendra stood on the balcony of his rebuilt home. The company was recovering, Victor's confession having cleared Blake's name. James had accepted plea deal for psychiatric treatment. What happens now? Kendra asked, watching sunset paint the Atlanta skyline. Now we choose, Blake answered, turning her to face him. Not what Victor planned, not what circumstances forced. What we want. His hands framed her face with practiced tenderness, months of connection having taught him her contours by heart. And what do you want? She whispered. You, he answered simply. Not because Victor pushed us together, not because of resemblance to someone I lost, but because you're the strongest, most compassionate person I've ever known. Their bodies found each other with practiced ease now, the desperate urgency of survival replaced by something deeper. The slow, deliberate exploration of lovers with time stretching before them, unmarked territory waiting to be claimed together. Later, wrapped in sheets and each other, they watched stars appear above the city that had witnessed their unlikely beginning. We could start fresh, she suggested. New city, new memories. Or reclaim this one, he countered. Build something neither of us planned, but both of us chose. Their future stretched before them. Not engineered by vengeance, but crafted by choice. Two people who met through manipulation, but found authentic connection amid chaos. Would you have trusted a stranger in your darkest moment? Would you open your heart after keeping it locked away for decades? Share your thoughts below. And remember, sometimes the most beautiful connections begin in the most unexpected ways.